Time to talk some trash about quantum mechanics. Alright, everybody. First off, I'd like to thank everybody for subscribing to this channel. Hopefully these ideas can bring out new ideas inside of yourself. I consider myself to be a very creative mind, and my listeners are also very creative themselves. So don't hesitate to expand your mind in other avenues of approach, and don't hesitate to question everything you read and see. Talking trash about quantum mechanics is going to be pretty fun. I hate quantum mechanics. Every time I see that word quantum, I immediately go, oh man, here we go. Some freaking overeducated academic is going to feed us a line of bullshit, and we have to suck it in just because they have the authority to do so. You know, every time I see that Q word, it's like, oh, here we go. You know? And the truth is that, yeah, a lot of it is complete crap. It's just dodging real answers as to how things work. You just throw that Q word out there because it looks fashionable, I guess, you know? It's the in-group word. It's the catchword. Oh, quantum. Ooh, be afraid. Here I'm going to read quantum tunneling. This is what I'm going to attack first. And I didn't naturally come to attacking quantum tunneling right off the bat. I didn't just look up this random page. I came to it from my own theory development, okay? If a star is not a fusion reactor, it's electrochemical in nature, meaning it's not powered via fusion reactions, which is, you know, nonsense. Fusion reactors on a galactic scale. Stars are electrochemical. So I was like, okay, well, if stars are electrochemical, then that means everything about the fusion model of stars is nonsense. So I started to find out how they justified the fusion model of stars, and I came directly to quantum tunneling, okay? I'm going to go ahead and read this Wikipedia page for you guys. Quantum tunneling, or tunneling, see spelling differences, refers to the quantum mechanical phenomenon where a particle tunnels through a barrier that it classically could not surmount. So right there, it's an immediate red flag for me. It classically cannot surmount a barrier. Why is that? This plays an essential role in several physical phenomena, such as nuclear fusion that occurs in main sequence stars like the Sun. Boom. Nailed it. They invented the quantum tunneling thing because they needed to justify the fusion model of the Sun. It has important applications to modern devices such as the tunnel diode, quantum computing, and the scanning tunneling microscope. The effect was predicted in the early 20th century, and its acceptance as a general physical phenomenon came mid-century. Okay, let me translate that for you. It has important applications to modern devices such as the tunnel diode. Maybe there's a different phenomenon that can explain that. Quantum computing. Quantum computers don't exist. Sorry, Wikipedia experts, you're full of shit. And the scanning tunneling microscope. You mean the electron microscope? What is a scanning tunneling microscope? I don't know. I haven't looked that up. That's not for purposes of this talk, though. The effect was predicted in the early 20th century, meaning mathematicians went wild crazy and pulled their hair out and were really bored with their lives, so they started inventing a lot of these processes. And its acceptance as a general physical phenomenon came mid-century. In other words, there was no discovery of this process. It was predicted, and then it was accepted. They completely skipped the discovery part. In other words, everybody, mathematicians invented quantum tunneling to justify the fusion model of the stars, and nobody ever questioned it. They said, did we ever discover if this process actually happens? No, there was no discovery at all. It was a bunch of made-up nonsense with that fashionable Q word. Everybody spoke in quantum. Now, this has important implications for my next talks when I discuss why it is a lot of UFOs are radioactive when they land, survey an area, then take off, and then leave a radioactive, mess. And you can track where radioactive craft landed by using a Geiger counter. The reason why that is because when the craft is traveling at such a high rate of velocity through interstellar space, there is no quantum tunneling on the surface of the skin of the craft, okay? What happens is the inertia from all those particles in interstellar space interacts with the skin of the craft, causing small nuclear fusion reactions on the surface of the craft, causing the craft to radiate or be radioactive. So when it travels to another star, such as Earth or Mercury, and it surveys an area, it has to cool down a little bit and let all that radioactive mess kind of settle out a little bit. That's why I think a lot of radioactive craft are really bright. It's just a possibility when they enter in the atmosphere for the first time, and then they dim and they cool down. Think about like a car engine. When you're going really fast and you have your foot on the gas, okay, that engine heats up really, really hot, okay? And then when you pull up at the red light, it, cools down. The car, catches its breath. Same thing when, I don't know when people are listening to their vehicles when they pull into the driveway, but when your car pulls into the driveway after driving for a while and you let it sit, if you just sit in a chair and listen to your car engine crackle and pop, all the metal and all the interior components that were hot are contracting and they're cracking. They're just snapping. You can listen to the radiator, you can listen to the engine actually, like the metal contracting as it cools. And same thing with UFOs. When they come into an atmosphere, boom, they're really hot and they have to cool down, then they can survey the area, then go back up into wherever they came from. As well, I just want people to see that what we're being told, a lot of it is just nonsense, okay? But you really have to just kind of think about these things a little bit. Think about where the justification for all those false ideas came from. And really pay attention to what's actually happening right now. Look up the National Ignition Facility, okay, where they supposedly are going to take this little thing of deuterium and shoot a laser at it, and boom, it's going to make fusion magically, because they have these false ideas such as quantum tunneling. They think that's going to work. Basically, their fusion model is almost exactly like an internal combustion engine. They say, oh, it's compression, and then it's ignition, and then it's no. Fusion, to me, means you have to have material traveling at a very high rate of velocity near the speed of light. And there are reactions that occur during that, where the material overcomes the Coulomb barrier. There's no tunneling, it just forces itself through the Coulomb barrier. And measuring that and coming to terms with what it really means will lead to understanding what fusion is. But building billion-dollar experiments trying to prove ideas which have been false since the 50s, that's not how we're gonna progress at all. As well, the ITER, International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor that they're building over in Europe, I believe, that's going to be an enormous flop. Billions of dollars being thrown down the toilet. You should give that money to me. Give me $5 billion. I'll build smaller little experimental things to prove to you that that thing is not going to work. Because what they're going to be doing is, say you have a big balloon, okay? Now, when you push the balloon, your fingers are pushing into the skin of the balloon, aren't they? And it's hard to get the balloon to collapse spherically, right? That's basically what the problem is going to be. They're going to take a plasma inside of a torus configuration, mind you, not even a sphere, it's a torus configuration, much more complex than a single sphere, and they're going to take magnets to confine the plasma to make sure if they're going to compress the plasma doesn't shoot out anywhere from being compressed, okay? You know how incredibly difficult that is to do? If anything, they should have made this experiment on a very, very, very small scale and see if it was feasible to confine a plasma, okay, without it shooting out. But what they're doing is they're making a plasma a fusion reactor the size, I think, of like a 5-story building. You know how hard it's going to be to take all those magnets and confine all that plasma? I don't think they're going to even be able to get the plasma to behave. Getting plasma to behave is very difficult. But they all of a sudden have these ideas of how it's going to be a fusion reactor. The thinking that goes behind it, I think, is rooted in massive groupthink and people not saying, hey, you know what, maybe we should contact some old wise man or woman who knows what the fuck this is gonna really do, who really can look at it and say, well, you guys are just wasting your money. Or maybe they have done that. Maybe they have talked to some really old wise people and told them that it was going to work, but they just went ahead with it anyways because it was in the name of science. You know, oh, you're going to prevent the progress of science. Oh, you're against humanity's future and all this stuff. No, it's common sense, people. If you take billions of dollars and throw them down the toilet, that's not science. Science is just taking things and experimenting on them in ways that you think it's going to work. Not just willy-nilly throwing billions of dollars into some giant contraption that you don't even know what it does. Like the LHC. They don't even know what it does. For all we know, it's just a giant microwave. Just stick a freaking hot dog in that thing and see what it does. Yeah. Oh, it smashes particles together. Okay. How are we supposed to get more information from that? It's like taking a beer bottle and throwing on the ground. Ooh, look, smaller beer bottle pieces. How are you supposed to get more information of how nature works by smashing things together? I don't get it. But anyways, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. For those that don't realize it, yeah, I have beef with almost every single idea mainstream science tries to tell me. I think a lot of them are absolutely full of shit. And I think you should think like that as well. Oh yeah, today is March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, 2015.